So, in this video, we're going to be looking at the consequences of the Beer Hall Putsch and what historians call the lean years of the Nazi Party. So where we left off in the last video, the Nazi uprising known as the Beer Hall Putsch in 1923 had failed. Hitler had been arrested, 16 Nazis and 4 police officers were killed, and the Nazi Party was banned. Hitler was put on trial for one of the most serious crimes possible: high treason, meaning taking action against your own government. Hitler's trial took place in early 1924, and he admitted his role in the putsch, basically admitting he was guilty. But he used his trial as a platform to attack the Weimar Republic and argued that the real traitors were the politicians who signed the armistice in 1918. He began with a nearly 4-hour-long opening speech, telling his life stories, his beliefs, and political vision. The trial turned into a media sensation across Germany. Newspapers across the country reported on it, and Hitler gained national attention. Although Hitler was obviously guilty, the judges were more right-leaning and sympathetic to his nationalist views. Instead of a life sentence, he was given just 5 years in prison and a relatively small fine, basically a slap on the wrist saying, "Don't do this again, Adolf." In reality, he only served around 9 months of this sentence before being released for good behaviour. Hitler went to Landsberg Prison, but as you can probably tell from this image, it was far from the typical prison experience. Hitler was treated very leniently. He had visitors coming in, comfortable conditions, and good food. But the most important outcome of his time in prison was the writing of his book, Mein Kampf, translating to My Struggle. In this book, he outlined his key ideas for the future of Germany: overturning the Treaty of Versailles, rejecting democracy, expanding German territory into Eastern Europe, and strong anti-Semitic beliefs. Importantly, nearly a decade before Hitler came to power, he had laid out his vision very clearly in this book. Another crucial consequence of the failed putsch was a change in Hitler's strategy. He realised that he could not seize power by force. So after his release in December 1924, he vowed to only take power legally through winning elections. His plan was to take power through democracy, and then afterwards dismantling democracy from within. So we have 3 main consequences of the Beer Hall Putsch: Hitler's trial and increasing publicity, the writing of Mein Kampf, and his decision to pursue political power through legal political means. After his release from prison, the ban on the Nazi Party was lifted and Hitler began rebuilding the party. The key question now was, how could the Nazis win voters across Germany? Firstly, the party was reorganised. A new headquarters was established in Munich, their home base, which was well financed by businessmen. Hitler changed the party structure, with departments for areas like finance, propaganda, foreign affairs, education, etc. This specialised different groups and made the party more efficient, almost like a government in waiting. Hitler also strengthened control over the party's paramilitary group. We have previously seen the creation of the SA, which continued to act as the muscle of the Nazi Party, intimidating opponents and showing off Nazi strength and power. However, Hitler did not fully trust the SA, especially as many stormtroopers were unpredictable and difficult to control. As well as this, during Hitler's time in prison, the SA became loyal to their commander, Ernst Röhm, instead of Hitler. Hitler decided to replace Röhm as the head of the SA, and he was sent abroad until 1930. Down the line, Röhm would eventually be murdered on the night of the Long Knives. Hitler also created a new group, the SS, originally serving as Hitler's personal bodyguard. Under the leadership of Heinrich Himmler, the SS became a loyal elite group near the top of the Nazi hierarchy. By 1930, the SS had grown to around 3,000 members and were famous and feared for their menacing black uniforms. The Nazis also aimed to expand beyond their stronghold in Bavaria and become a truly national party. Germany was divided into different regions called Gau, each with a local Nazi leader called a Gauleiter. This allowed the Nazis to organise support across the country. But there was a problem, because this created division within the Nazi party. In industrial regions and cities in the north, the party wanted to appeal to workers and so focused more on socialist ideas, such as attacking businessmen. In contrast, in the south and rural areas, their focus was more on nationalism and traditional values. So there was a split in ideology between the nationalist and socialist parts of National Socialism. To resolve this, Hitler called the Bamberg Conference in 1926. The left-wing and socialist faction was led by Gregor Strasser, and he was allowed to put his views forward. Hitler led the nationalist faction and spoke for 5 hours to reassert his authority. Strasser lost and pledged his loyalty to Hitler, and although he remained in the party, he was never really trusted and was later killed in the Night of the Long Knives. But despite all this reorganisation, the mid to late 1920s were actually known as the lean years of the Nazi Party, because although membership grew from around 27,000 people in 1925 to 130,000 people by 1929, the Nazis were still polling very poorly in elections. The main reason was that Germany was relatively stable during this period. Under the leadership of Gustav Stresemann, the economy improved through policies like the Dawes Plan and the Young Plan. In addition, the election of former Field Marshal of the Army, Paul von Hindenburg, as president in 1925 reassured many conservative and nationalist voters in the Republic. Because life was improving, most people did not want to support the extreme parties like the Nazis. In the 1928 elections, the Nazis had won just 12 seats in the Reichstag, only 2.6% of the votes. However, the situation was about to change dramatically. At the end of the 1920s, a major global crisis would transform German politics and bring the Nazis into national prominence for the first time. This was the Wall Street crash in America and the onset of the Great Depression. And that's what we'll be covering in the next video. See you then.